Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine, as we did last week with announcing further measures to stand with Ukraine in Russia's illegal war against it.
This is my video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Tuesday evening, September the 26th. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with Justin Trudeau and the Speaker of the Parliament, Anthony Rota, the Canadian Foreign Minister. She is saying that Anthony Rota should resign as the Speaker. Justin Trudeau, when he talked about the incident that happened in the Parliament in Canada, that incident where all of the Canadian members of Parliament applauded a standing ovation twice for a World War II SS Galicia Nazi, when they all stood up and applauded for this guy who was called by the Speaker of the Canadian Parliament. He was called a hero, not only of Ukraine, but he was called a hero of Canada. And Zelensky and his wife, they also stood up and they applauded. They clapped. A fist bump from Zelensky. Anyway, when Trudeau was speaking about this incident to the press, he said that the Speaker of the Parliament has acknowledged his mistake, not Trudeau's mistake, not Trudeau's media or PR team's mistake, not his administration's mistake. Nope. This is the Speaker of the Parliament's mistake, his mistake. Someone is being scapegoated. Someone is being thrown under the bus. And actually, I think that the Speaker of the Parliament in Canada, he's agreed to this. He's agreed to take full responsibility for this huge debacle. I mean, this is a big one. This is a real big F up from the Trudeau government. A real big one. So, I think the Speaker of the Parliament, my hunch is that Trudeau approached him and he said, look, listen up, Anthony. Listen up, Tony. Someone's going to have to take the fall. What do you say? And the Speaker of the Parliament said, well, you're going to take care of me because I'm going to probably have to resign after this one. And Trudeau called up Klaus. And he said, hey, Klaus, in about 6 months, do you have a position for Anthony at some NGO or some think tank? IMF, World Bank? And Klaus said, yup, I have position for him. That was that. That was it. And the Speaker of the Parliament for Canada, he's going to have to resign. Poland is coming out strong on this one. They are furious. The ambassador of Poland to Canada, he demands an apology. I believe the education minister of Poland has also called for the resignation of the Parliament Speaker as well. Belarus demands an apology from Canada. Yep. Belarus wants an apology I believe that Belarus, they lost one in every three citizens from World War II, from the Nazis. So Belarus, they are demanding an apology. The UN said they're absolutely horrified with what happened in the parliament in Canada. What else? Who else is demanding apologies? Zelensky's not demanding an apology. Isn't that interesting? Zelensky's not saying, "Hey, you guys didn't tell me about this guy," and me and my wife, we were in parliament and we were clapping. How come you guys didn't brief me on who this dude was? Why isn't Zelensky coming out with a statement? Isn't that odd? Isn't that curious? There's a photo going around, which I believe this Nazi's granddaughter. I believe she posted a photo where this guy is waiting for Trudeau, like waiting for Trudeau. I was thinking waiting for Godot, where this guy is like in the waiting room for Trudeau and Zelensky because he's going to have a meeting with Zelensky and Trudeau before the big event at the parliament was to take place. So if that is indeed the case, if that's what this photo is showing, and this photo was posted by this guy's granddaughter, if that is indeed the case, that would mean that Trudeau and Zelensky probably knew about this guy because they spoke to him before the event, before the parliament session, which would completely debunk Trudeau's press conference, his appearance in front of the media, where he claims that he had no idea about this guy. He didn't know who he was. He was just kind of blindsided by all of this. The Speaker of the Parliament, he orchestrated all of this. He handled this whole affair from beginning to end, and Trudeau wants all of us to believe that he had no idea what was going on. And if you believe that, I have got a Cyprus parking lot to sell you if you believe that Trudeau had no idea what was going on. So, yeah, that is the big story. That is the really, really big story. And Zelensky, he traveled back from Canada to Kiev. He stopped over in Poland. And not many people are talking about Zelensky's trip to Kiev via Poland because the Polish authorities, they didn't roll out the red carpet for Zelensky. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Duda, Morawiecki, they didn't meet with him. Usually when he goes through Poland, usually Duda's like hugging him and kissing him, and they're having a big event. They have a big event and a big press conference. There was none of that. Zelensky he rolled into Poland very quietly. I think there was some sort of very low-key award ceremony where Zelensky presented some volunteers, like 2 or 3 volunteers with some award. And that was it. And then he made his way to Kiev. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Something is up with Zelensky. I think they're going to maneuver Zelensky out. That's what I think is going on. Today there was an investigation from the authorities in Poland on that missile strike that landed in Polish territory. Remember that missile that fell on this farmland, and it actually killed 2 Polish citizens that were living in this village, living on this farm. This happened I want to say 9, 10 months ago. But at the time when this missile landed in this farm in Poland, the Ukraine government, Zelensky, they came out very quick, and they were like, "This is a Russian missile. It's hit Poland. World War III, Article 5, NATO, World War III." And if it wasn't for photos that were taken and then were uploaded to social media, we might have had an Article 5 World War III moment, because the photos, they actually showed that these missiles, these fragments were from, I believe it was from an S-200 or something like that. Anyway, it was clear that these missiles were from a Ukraine air defense, which most likely missed its target and landed in Poland and ended up killing 2 Polish citizens. Anyway, I'm sure you guys remember the incident. There was an investigation in Poland that wrapped up today. I had no idea this was going on. Did you guys have any idea that this was going on? I had no idea that this was under investigation. But the conclusion of this investigation was that the missile was indeed a Ukraine missile. Basically, it's Poland, the Polish authorities coming out and saying that Ukraine misfired a missile into Polish territory and killed Polish citizens. Isn't that interesting that this investigation comes out with the conclusion that Ukraine did it? Why would they put out this investigation? Why would Poland put out this type of investigation, which implicates Ukraine? Even though it was a misfire, you could say it was a misfire, an accident, they didn't have to come out with the results of this investigation. No one even remembers this incident, to be quite honest. I mean, this is history now. They could have just let this be. They didn't have to go through the trouble of publicizing the results of this investigation unless they wanted to damage Ukraine and Zelensky. Something is going on. Something is happening. And Zelensky's wife, Olenska, she gave an interview to CBS, I believe. And in this interview with CBS, she actually said that her husband, Mr. Zelensky, may not actually run for president in 2024. Isn't that interesting? Let me get you the quote from Olenska. This is what she said to CBS in this interview. "I don't know whether he will make such a decision to run for a second term or not. It will depend on the situation in our country, the ability to organize free and fair elections. If he feels that Ukrainian society no longer wants him to be president, he probably won't run." You know what Zelensky's wife is telling Zelensky? Don't run. Don't run. Let's just gather up all our money and let's get out of here. That is what she is telling Zelensky. A very interesting statement from the wife of the clown puppet. A very interesting statement, because in the video that I made yesterday, I talked about the Washington Post article, which said that there are many officials in the U.S. government, in the Senate, in the House, even hardcore neocons, who are telling Zelensky to hold elections in 2024. And I said in that video that they want Zelensky to have elections in 2024 because it's obvious they're not happy with Zelensky. they're pretty pissed off at the way the big super duper counteroffensive developed and the fact that it's been one big failure. And they want Zelensky gone. But the way they thought about it is the best way to get rid of Zelensky is to have a smooth transition and to package it, to present it to the American people in a way that that makes it seem like Ukraine is a vibrant democracy, and Zelensky was voted out by the people of Ukraine, and now we have a smooth transition, and the person that would take over for Zelensky, that would win the election, would most likely, that bus almost hit me. The person that would win the election would most certainly be the candidate that these neocons would want to take over for Zelensky. Who that candidate is, who they're thinking of, I don't know. I don't even think they know, but they probably need a year to prepare someone to take over for Zelensky. Anyway, I talked about this in my video yesterday, and I think that is exactly what is going on. What we are seeing right now, we are seeing a concerted effort. Poland, the United States, they're maneuvering to get Zelensky out, and they don't want to do it in a hostile way. They would like it to be a smooth transition. And I think that Zelensky's wife, maybe it's that female intuition. I think she understands exactly what's going on. Maybe she's in on it. Who knows? Maybe they contacted her and they told her, give an interview to CBS and float out the prospect that Zelensky may not even run in 2024. Whatever the case is, Zelensky is being maneuvered out. That's my hunch. I could be wrong about this, but that is my hunch. The BBC, they actually put on the front page of their website, they actually had an image, the image of the admiral of the Black Sea Fleet, who was in attendance during the Ministry of Defense's meeting today, which Shoigu chaired. He was speaking at this meeting. He talked about the losses in September. I think he put that number of Ukraine losses, and I believe this is KIA. He put that number in September alone at 17,000. A catastrophic, horrific number of losses in 1 month. But anyway, the admiral, he was at this event, and this is the admiral that, according to the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, this is the guy that was killed in the missile strike on the Black Sea headquarters. And there he was today, sitting in attendance, listening to Shoigu. And of course, the camera, the Russian Ministry of Defense, the media, they made sure that the camera focused in on him in order to show that Ukraine is BSing when they claim that this admiral was killed during the missile strike on the Black Sea headquarters. And the BBC put this on their front page. Why would the BBC put this on the front page of their website? They would hide stuff like this. They wouldn't even mention stuff like this. But here's the BBC basically exposing the fact that Ukraine lied about the death of this admiral. Something is up. Something is up. A lot of people are very upset with how Project Ukraine is going. I read a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she was talking about how Ukraine has an NAZI problem. And this is a tweet after the session of Parliament in Canada. This Parliament session in Canada This did a lot of damage to Project Ukraine and Zelensky. And so you have Marjorie Taylor Greene talking about Ukraine's NAZI problem. And of course, she ties it into Ukraine funding. And you had Mr. Kirby, who is one of the chief propaganda agents for the Biden White House. Kirby came out and he told Collective West media that if they don't get money to Ukraine in the next few days, then Ukraine is done. They're broke. They rely completely on the United States to fund everything, like everything for Ukraine relies on money from the United States. And of course, he's talking about the government shutdown, and he is pleading, he is begging the Republicans, the people of the United States, he is begging them to not shut down the money, the 20 billion that is earmarked for the Zelensky regime, because if that 20 billion does not get into the hands of the Zelensky regime, then Project Ukraine is in big trouble. In 60 Minutes, had a report on Project Ukraine, and their reporter was in Kiev at the same time that Graham, Warren, and Blumenthal were there. And basically, this 60 Minutes report, let's cross. Let's go up that way. This 60 Minutes report talked about how the entire government, the entire society of Ukraine, not even the government, is dependent on U.S. money. Like all of society in Ukraine is dependent on U.S. money. The military, the first responders, firemen, police, small businesses, all of it is dependent on U.S. money. You know, they had like a small business owner. She was crying to 60 Minutes. You know, I'm so thankful for the money that you've given me, and it's helped my business, and it's kept me afloat. And they were trying to spin it as a way to say, look, don't cut Ukraine off. Make sure the 20 billion gets to the Zelensky regime, and that's how they were packaging this. But I think it's had the opposite effect. I think it's like had the exact opposite effect, because people watching this, especially from the US, what they're saying is, wait a minute, all of our money is going to first responders and to small businesses? We're paying for everything? It's almost like they didn't know. A lot of people in the US had no idea that they're paying everything in Ukraine. And now you're going to have a government shutdown where you're going to have government employees not getting paid, right? People are not going to get their salaries, but Ukraine firemen and policemen and government officials, they're going to get paid. They're going to get their salaries while I'm not going to get my salary. I mean, this 60 Minutes report from Kiev, I think it had the exact opposite effect of what they were hoping for. I'm telling you. We are starting to see a lot of PR and media blunders. We really, really are. I don't know, is this intentional, or is this just, or this was just going to happen? It was just a matter of time. The truth was going to come out. I think it was just a matter of time. I think sooner or later, you know, you lie, one lie after another, one cover up after another. Eventually, the truth always finds a way to get out there. And I think that's what we're seeing now. And once you have a couple of small cracks, the whole thing starts to break. And that's what we're going to see. The whole thing's going to start to break. Anyway, yeah, that is what is going on with Zelensky and Project Ukraine. And I think I'm going to make this video a short video. for this evening. I just want to make sure I've covered most of the topics that I wanted to cover. I'm kind of winging it tonight. I don't have everything exactly bookmarked and prepared the way I usually do. But, Samantha Power for USAID. She is now in Armenia. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? You know, it just proves that our analysis on the Duran was 100% correct. What Pashinyan did with Nagorno-Karabakh, the way he orchestrated the whole thing, it was all about getting the U.S., NATO, the EU into Armenia, getting them further embedded into Armenia, and eventually pulling Armenia into the European Union and NATO. That is why Samantha Power rushed off to Armenia. When Samantha Power, when she visits your country, you know it's bad news. They think it's good news. Pashinyan thinks it's good news. Pashinyan's cronies, they're probably very excited because they can smell the money. But for the people of Armenia, this is very, very bad news. Very bad news. I was actually reading something today which said that Azerbaijan would like reparations of around, I forgot the number. I want to say 100 billion or 100 million. I just can't remember the number that I read, but Azerbaijan wants reparations for the fact that Armenia was operating in Nagorno-Karabakh when Nagorno-Karabakh, according to Pashinyan, was the territory of Azerbaijan. You're going to start getting stuff like this coming out there from Azerbaijan because they're not going to stop. They've got plans for more territory in this region. And now you have Samantha Power in Armenia. This is going to be a disaster. This is going to be a big disaster. What else do I want to talk about? Here we have the Abrams tanks. They are now in Ukraine. I believe 10 Abrams tanks made their way to Ukraine. And I'll take a guess and say that the Pentagon has told the Ukraine Ministry of Defense to keep those Abrams tanks far away from the front lines. Very, very far away from the front lines. That would be my guess. Because 10 tanks or 30 tanks, 50 tanks, however many Abrams tanks they send to Ukraine, is not going to make a difference. Even the Wall Street Journal came out with an article today and they said that the Abrams tanks are not going to make one bit of difference with regards to the trajectory and the outcome of this conflict. So I think I've covered most everything. I can now do a clown world, and I've got 2 clown worlds for today. Let's start off with Ukraine's National Commission for State Language Standards has ruled that writing Russia in lowercase letters is no longer an error. So now you can write Russia with a lowercase r. You don't need to capitalize the R, according to Ukraine's National Commission for State Language Standards. This is what they're concerned with. For them, it's all theater, spin, propaganda, getting articles like this to go viral, getting stuff like this to go viral on social media. That's what they look at. They wasted their time with nonsense like this. Russia with a lowercase r. Oh boy. And this is straight out of the collective West. Doesn't the collective West, doesn't mainstream media also do this? I forgot with what terms they put stuff in a lowercase. I'm trying to remember. It's something to do with like woke ideology or something like that. They write they write certain words in an uppercase, and then the woke ideology requires that they put other certain words with the lowercase. And this is like some sort of woke statement that they're making. Anyway, this is straight from the script writers of the collective West, and this is what Ukraine is taking up their time with. This is what Ukrainian officials are doing. This is where U.S. money, this 20 billion, it goes to stuff like this. It goes to initiatives like this to pay the salaries of the people at Ukraine's National Commission of State Language Standards. That money's going to pay these guys his salary. Anyway, let's now do a final clown world, and we will wrap this video up. And I talked about the Abrams tanks that are now in Ukraine, and the Pentagon is going to make sure that those Abrams stay far away from the front lines, because they don't want to have a debacle like what happened with the Leopard tanks. They don't want to see images of Abrams tanks burning like the Leopard tank images burning. And so we had an interview the other day with sophisticated journalist and international correspondent Christiane Amanpour, and she interviewed 560 degrees Annalena Baerbock. She's not 360 anymore. She's 560, and soon she's going to be 720, but we'll wait for the 7 Series model of Annalena Baerbock to come out in the next year or two. It's going to be a nice model, the 7 Series. Anyway, Amanpour, she interviewed Annalena Baerbock, and Christiane Amanpour, she asked Annalena about the fact that Leopard tanks are faulty and they don't work. The German Leopard tanks that are being sent to Ukraine they are not working. They're full of all kinds of defects. And she asked Annalena, what's up with that? Why are you sending Ukraine these faulty tanks? And even the Ukraine Ministry of Defense is starting to turn down the delivery of German Leopards. And Baerbock, she replied to Amanpour by saying that some German systems were really old-fashioned and not functioning because, according to Baerbock, she said, thanks God. She actually thanked God, that's not going to go over well with Klaus, the fact that she thanked God. But Baerbock thanked God that there had been no war in Europe, and much of the German equipment, it just started to collect dust in the warehouses, and it stopped working. And she said that these systems, they're just old-fashioned and they stopped functioning, but we sent them to Ukraine anyway. And she's referring to the Leopard tanks, kind of saying that we knew the Leopard tanks were not working. We knew they were old. We knew they were collecting dust. But, we said we might as well send them to the Zelensky regime. And she said, thanks God. Thanks God. That's what Annalena said. So that was the question from Christiane Amanpour, international correspondent and a very sophisticated journalist, Annalena Baerbock. My name is Christiane Amanpour. I'm a very, very sophisticated journalist and an international correspondent. And I would like to ask you, why do the Leopard tanks suck? Baerbock's like, thanks God. Thanks God that we haven't had a war in Europe. And now that we have a war in Europe, Germany decided to send those Leopard tanks to the Zelensky regime, knowing that those Leopard tanks would not work. I say this is all just a bunch of bollocks. That's what I think. I think this is the excuse, the script that they've given to Baerbock in order to explain away the fact that the Russians demolished those Leopard tanks pretty easily. And so the excuse they're going to run with is that those Leopard tanks, well, they were collecting dust, the system wasn't working. So, that's why they were burning on the front lines. Anyway, that is the video. Everybody, I will leave it there. Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin, as well as Twitter, now known as X. And by the way, the EU, they came out with a list of the top misinformation social media platforms, and Twitter topped the list of Russian misinformation platforms. And Trudeau in his statement, he wants everyone to pivot away from the reality of what happened in the parliament in Canada, to forget about all of that and to focus on Russian disinformation. That's what concerns Trudeau. Money for Ukraine, he said. Let's make sure we continue to get money to Ukraine, and let's never, ever forget Russian disinformation. As if Russia had anything to do with this entire debacle that took place in Canada. Russia had zero to do with it, but Trudeau wants everyone to focus on Russian disinformation. And of course, all of the collective West media, they're trying to help out Trudeau by saying that anyone who talks about what happened in Canada at the parliament, they're just helping Putin score a win. The more that people in the collective West talk about this very, very embarrassing and disgusting event in the parliament in Canada, the more that they are helping Putin score a victory. That is the pivot. That's the narrative shift. What a mess. What a freaking mess Project Ukraine has become for the collective West. What a mess. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. Go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code Good Day. GoGordian.com. All right, take care.